It started in the most ordinary way, the kind of moment you forget as soon as it passes, unless something inside it changes everything. I was washing dishes when I heard a soft knock on our back door. It was her, our neighbour, standing there with her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She looked tired, lost, like she'd been carrying something heavy for far too long. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. I dried my hands and stepped closer. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, eyes drifting away as if she was afraid to say the words out loud. "My sink's leaking again, and I don't know how to fix it. I didn't want to bother anyone, but..." Her voice cracked. "I just really need some help today." I should have said something simple. "Of course, let me see what I can do." But instead, without even thinking, I called out over my shoulder, "Love, can you come here for a second?" My husband walked in, wiping sweat from his forehead from the backyard work he'd been doing. He looked at her, then at me. His eyebrows lifted slightly, waiting. "She needs help," I said softly. "Just with a small plumbing issue." He looked at our neighbour for a long moment. Her cheeks were flushed. Her eyes were pleading in a way that made even me feel it. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he said. "I'll help. Just show me what's going on." The way her face lit up, the relief, the gratitude, the way she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for hours, it made something stir in my chest. Something I didn't expect. Something I didn't have a name for. As they stepped out of my kitchen together, she glanced back at me. And there was something in her eyes. Not just relief, not just gratitude. Something else. Something that made my stomach tighten. And I caught myself thinking, why did that look feel like the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for? I watched them walk across the yard together, the afternoon sun stretching their shadows long across the grass. I don't know why, but something about the sight made my pulse thump a little harder. Maybe it was the way she walked just a bit closer to him than she needed to. Or maybe it was the way he slowed down so she could keep up. Gentle, attentive, without even realizing it. Her back door closed behind them, leaving my kitchen suddenly too quiet. I tried to go back to what I was doing, dishes, laundry, the little things that usually filled the silence without asking for attention. But not today. Today, every tiny sound from next door made my breath catch. A faint clatter, a burst of muffled conversation. Then his voice, steady, calm, reassuring. I don't know why it bothered me. He helped people all the time. It was one of the things I loved most about him. But this felt different. Eventually, I gave up pretending to focus and walked to the window that faced her house. I wasn't spying, not really. I just needed to see something, anything. But all I saw was the curtain she'd pulled halfway closed, leaving only a sliver of their silhouettes visible. My husband knelt beside the cabinet under her sink, tools spread out neatly. She stood above him, her hands nervously wringing the hem of her shirt. Then she did something that made my stomach twist. She touched his shoulder. Just lightly. Just enough to thank him. But more than enough for me to feel it all the way from my window. My breath hitched. I stepped back before I even realized I was moving. And suddenly the question hit me. Sharp, unwelcome, unavoidable. Why did that tiny touch feel like a warning? Why did it feel like she wasn't just grateful, but lonely in a way that pulls people toward danger? I tried to shake it off, to be rational, to remind myself that he was just helping with a leak. But my heart didn't care about rational, because even from a distance, I could feel something shifting. Something small, barely noticeable, but real. And the worst part? I didn't know if it was shifting in her or in him. They were gone longer than I expected, long enough for my imagination to start filling in the silence with thoughts I didn't want to admit were mine. I tried distracting myself, wiped the counters, reorganized a drawer, even lit a candle to steady my nerves. But every few minutes, my eyes drifted back to the window, to the empty yard, to the quiet that seemed to echo louder with every passing second. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard footsteps approaching our back door. I turned, too quickly, too eagerly, just as my husband stepped inside, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked tired and thoughtful. But before I could ask anything, someone else appeared behind him, our neighbour. She lingered in the doorway, her cheeks flushed, her hair slightly out of place, holding her hands together like she wasn't sure if she should speak or stay silent. "Thank you again," she said softly, her eyes lingering on my husband a second too long. "You really saved me today." My husband smiled politely, but there was something unreadable in his eyes, something he was still processing. "It was nothing," he said, brushing it off. "Just a loose pipe." But her gaze said she felt something more than gratitude. She stepped closer to me this time, her voice dropping just a little. "You're lucky to have someone like him. Not everyone would take time out of their day like that." The way she said it, the way her eyes softened, it made something warm and uneasy twist low in my stomach. "Yeah," I replied quietly. "I know." There was a long, heavy pause, not awkward, just full of things none of us wanted to acknowledge. Then she exhaled shakily, adjusting the strap of her bag. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, I'm right next door," she murmured. It was meant to sound friendly, but the way her eyes flicked toward my husband before she turned to leave, it didn't feel friendly. It felt intentional, calculated in the softest, sweetest way possible. When the door finally closed behind her, leaving just the two of us standing there, the silence between us felt different. Thicker, sharper, charged with an energy neither of us had words for yet. My husband set the towel down, avoiding my eyes. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded slowly, but his voice didn't match the nod. "Yeah, I'm fine, just tired." He wasn't lying, but he wasn't telling the whole truth either. And for the first time since she'd knocked on our door, I wasn't sure what scared me more, her intentions or his reaction to them. That night, the house felt strangely hollow. Not empty, just full of things unsaid. My husband sat on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the floor as if something down there might offer him answers he didn't have words for. I watched him from the doorway, quietly, carefully, trying to read the subtle changes in his face, the ones he didn't realize he made when he was lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" I asked gently. He looked up, surprised, like he hadn't realized how long he'd been drifting. "Nothing," he said, too quickly. I walked closer, sitting beside him. The mattress dipped slightly under my weight, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Then finally he exhaled, slow, deep, heavy. "She seemed lonely today," he admitted quietly. Lonely. The word lingered between us like a soft bruise. "I know," I whispered. "I saw that too." Another long pause, one that pressed against my heartbeat in a way I couldn't ignore. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I just didn't expect her to look at me like that." There it was, the truth he'd been holding in his chest since he stepped through her door. And it didn't anger me. It didn't scare me. What it did was something far more complicated. It made me understand. Understand why her voice trembled, why her eyes lingered, why she reached out for something that didn't belong to her. Some people don't flirt. They ache. And when they ache, it spills into the room without permission. I reached for his hand, threading my fingers through his. "You helped her," I said softly. "That's all." But even as I said it, I knew we both felt the same thing. That moment, that little sliver of connection, wouldn't just disappear. Not for her. Maybe not even for him. He turned to face me fully, his eyes finally steady. "I'm yours," he said quietly. "Don't ever doubt that." And I believed him. Completely, unquestionably. But belief doesn't erase the echo of a moment. And as I rested my head against his shoulder, I realized something. What happened today wasn't about pipes or sinks or favors. It was a reminder. A reminder that even the strongest relationships can be shaken by a single, unexpected knock at the door, and a pair of eyes longing for something they wish they could have.